Name is Rob, and I'm from Brooklyn, New York, currently living in White Plains. And I've been working with the Breathing Center. I first started to realize that I had kind of a serious health problem. And when I realized that was in high school, I went to school maybe 45 minutes away from me, so I had a long commute in the morning, so I didn't always get the most sleep. But I noticed that I was always much, much more tired than it seemed like people were around me. And to the point where I would just be literally asleep in class. Like I just had no energy at all. I just could not stay awake no matter what I did. And, this happened for several years and it continued throughout college. And in college, I started taking a couple of yoga classes. And that's when I was first introduced to the idea that breathing has a huge effect on your health. And I was introduced to nasal breathing and taught the importance of that a little bit. And whenever I did yoga, whenever I practiced yoga, I would feel really good afterwards, but it was always short-lived. It was always for maybe an hour or so after the class, I would feel pretty good, but then things would return to normal. I knew I wasn't there yet. I knew I hadn't found the answer. And it wasn't until I got to graduate school that I started digging a little bit deeper into breathing. And I found a little bit of information about Buteyko and his work online. And that's when I was introduced to the concept of nasal breathing 24/7 being very important. And they describe the process of taping your mouth closed when you sleep, so to make sure you breathe through your nose. And that seemed like a brilliant solution to me at the time, because I had seen some other solutions, like some sort of mouth guard where you have to wear this big plastic thing on your teeth and there's a shelf for your tongue where it keeps your mouth closed. And I tried that. I spent $250 on that, and it was super uncomfortable. I just couldn't wear it. I tried some chin strap that would strap my mouth closed, and that also didn't work, obviously. And then I just found the brilliant solution to just use tape. It's so simple, but very effective. So I started doing that, and from the first night I did it, I noticed a difference. I always, when I was younger, I always would wake up with a really dry, just horrible, nasty feeling in my throat, and my mouth and teeth would just feel dirty and disgusting. And I never put together that it was because I was breathing through my mouth the whole night. And it wasn't until I started taping my mouth that feeling went away. That I didn't wake up with that dry throat anymore. And it used to be like back in high school that whenever I would sleep, it didn't matter how much I would sleep, I was always tired in the morning. And if I slept more, sometimes I would be more tired. And I just didn't get it. Why was I tired when everyone else seemed to be totally fine? I felt like there was something just wrong with me, and I just didn't. But I had no one to ask at the time. I didn't even know that there was information out there about these kinds of things. So it was really life-changing to me when I found that information and started doing these things and started taping my mouth closed at night. I was so enthusiastic about it when I started doing it, and I felt such a big effect that I told everyone around me immediately about it. And of course, they look at me like I'm crazy, but a few of my friends actually tried it, the more open-minded ones, and they were all like, wow, this really does do something. I feel a lot better in the morning. My nasal passages are much more open and they feel nice and clean. And so that really validated it for me too, when I would told some of my friends about it. And from that point on, I just knew that there was something here. There was something that was really valuable that I needed to investigate further. And so I continued to practice for maybe a few months here, on and off, just keeping the idea, the concept in my mind, but not really having any sort of disciplined, regimented practice. And then later on, maybe, after a year of taping my mouth closed, that I actually went to see a practitioner. He showed me some exercises. I started doing them, and then I was ultimately led to the breathing center. I don't think I ever really had like very serious asthma. Like I wouldn't have serious attacks, but I always had a problem with my breathing. I always felt like I couldn't get a deep breath. I felt like my nose was stuffed all the time. And I never had clear nasal passages. I got a lot of colds when I was younger, and they just wouldn't go away. They would stick around for a long time. And I think at a certain point, I did have, maybe they thought I had asthma and they gave me some inhaler, but it was never a prolonged, it wasn't like a serious asthma like some people have, but it definitely was. I definitely had asthmatic symptoms. That's for sure, from what I'm reading now. But I feel like now that is not really a possibility anymore for me to ever get to a stage where I have problems with that, because I feel like I have much more control over those symptoms, and I understand exactly why they're happening. And because I understand why they're happening, I can do exactly what I need to do to control them, to stop them. So that's another benefit that I've gained. Just that general sense of greater control over my own health and all of my symptoms. But yeah, I mean, in general, just working one-on-one with the breathing center, it really kind of gave me a lot of validation to a lot of the things that I had been experimenting with on my own with my health. And because a lot, when you start getting into alternative health, you run into a lot of information, and there's a lot of different opinions and different practices. So it's hard to know what is really important to do and what's really important for you to focus on, and in what order, and how to sequence it all. So it gave me, just having someone who has the experience, who's helped people through these multiple healing stages, gave me a much greater sense of direction with what to do and how to sequence everything and what's important to do when for the healing process. And another thing that it really helped with is it gave me social support that I wasn't getting elsewhere. Because if you tell your friends you're on some sort of juice fast or some sort of cleansing program, or you're taking all these supplements, they look at you and they're like, yeah, why would you do that? That's dumb. But so you're not likely to continue on any serious health program unless you have social support coming from somewhere, because eventually you're just going to get tired of being that weird guy who's doing all this weird stuff and you don't really know if it's working or not. So it really helps to have someone to validate what you're doing. So I feel like I received that. And other than that, just I've got a lot of valuable information that really help to deepen my understanding of how the body works and how it heals itself, and how it's not something that we need to work against. It's something that we need to support and respect. The body has an innate wisdom so everything it's doing for a reason. And that understanding really helps you to switch your perspective on things from a perspective of like aggressively fighting and attacking your own body to supporting it. So that was that paradigm shift in itself is helpful, I think. As soon as I started doing the mouth taping at night, I noticed an immediate change in the daytime alertness and energy level. I went in first of all, it would be much easier to wake up in the morning. I would actually feel like rested. And throughout the day, I had a much, much better sense of stable energy when I started to do that. And the more I progressed, the more I got deeper into the practices and doing other things like that. It continued to increase my energy level and my overall sense of just well-being and peace within myself. And I still notice I have a lot to go from here, but it's definitely an improvement from where I used to be. It's like I'm a different person now than I was back then. I never would have been able to do a lot of the things that I'm doing now. I never would have imagined that I could do the things that I'm doing now back then, when I was falling asleep in class, constantly tired all the time. And it's kind of reopened a lot of possibilities in my mind of what's possible for me and for my life by doing these things.